Before we dive in, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button and share this video with fellow history buffs. Today, we're going to uncover one of the most astonishing and little-known survival tricks used by German soldiers during World War II. A technique so clever and practical that it wasn't just a fleeting improvisation, but a method that saved lives in the harshest conditions. If you consider yourself a serious historian or a prepper fascinated by survival tactics, this one-minute hook is just the start. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand not only the strategy itself, but how it can be applied in both historical analysis and real-world survival scenarios. How German soldiers turned extreme environments into an advantage. The Eastern Front of World War II presented some of the most brutal conditions in military history. Soldiers faced sub-zero temperatures, relentless snow, and constant enemy pressure. Conventional wisdom might suggest that these men simply hunkered down or retreated when conditions became intolerable. Yet German soldiers developed a survival trick that allowed them to exploit the environment instead of being crushed by it. They mastered the art of blending into the landscape while conserving energy and avoiding exposure. This was not camouflage in the ordinary sense. It was a combination of tactical concealment, resource management, and physiological preparation. The core of the trick involved turning winter survival into a strategic advantage. Soldiers would prepare by insulating themselves using layers not only for warmth, but also for controlling sweat and moisture. They realized that staying dry was just as critical as staying warm. Wet clothing could quickly turn deadly. The clever part comes from how they managed their activity cycles. Short, deliberate movements during the coldest periods, interspersed with stationary hiding that minimized caloric expenditure and exposure. This required acute observational skills, knowing when to move, when to rest, and how to use natural terrain to avoid detection. For anyone studying survival, this highlights the importance of aligning movement patterns with environmental conditions, a principle still highly relevant today. Why improvisation was a survival game-changer? Supplies were never guaranteed. On the Eastern Front, soldiers often went days without adequate rations or fuel for fires. The German solution was improvisation. They learned to create temporary shelters using available materials, branches, snow, and even abandoned debris. Snow, for instance, was not only insulation, but also camouflage. Soldiers would hollow out shallow snow pits, cover them with branches, and rest without leaving noticeable traces. This concept of invisible shelter demonstrates a principle that any survivalist can take away, using the environment itself as a defensive and protective tool. A practical lesson here is the principle of micro-shelters. Even in modern prepper scenarios, you can, replicate this approach. A compact snow trench, a makeshift lean-to, or even a debris mound can provide both insulation and concealment. The key is understanding that survival is not about grand constructions, but subtle manipulation of what's immediately around you. German soldiers exemplified this. Every small action was calibrated for survival efficiency. How they managed food and energy under extreme duress. Another shocking aspect of this survival trick was rationing and food improvisation. Soldiers were often limited to meagre K rations or whatever they could scavenge. Yet they developed a system of prioritizing high-energy foods at critical times, often consuming minimal calories while staying highly alert. They combined small food caches with strict energy management, moving only when necessary, and using heat retention techniques to reduce caloric loss. For today's survival enthusiasts, this really reinforces a principle that's often overlooked. Conserving energy can be just as important as sourcing food. When mobility is required in, adverse conditions, unnecessary movement can actually be deadly. Understanding the German soldiers' rhythm of consumption, rest and activity offers a blueprint for anyone planning extended survival scenarios. How the trick applied to long-term mental resilience. Physical tactics were only part of the equation. German soldiers had to maintain mental sharpness under conditions designed to, erode morale. Isolation, fear, and extreme cold were constant threats. Their survival trick included structured routines and small tasks that created a sense of control. Checking weapons, preparing shelters, rationing food, and observing enemy movements. This psychological discipline kept them focused and reduced panic-induced mistakes. You can apply this today in a more general prepper context. When facing extended survival situations, whether in the wilderness or during urban emergencies, maintaining structured routines, staying alert, and using small purposeful actions helps prevent fatigue and mental breakdown. It's a lesson that really goes beyond history. It's about translating battlefield insight into real-world preparedness. Why this trick still matters for serious historians and preppers. The genius of this German survival technique wasn't flashy. It was subtle, disciplined, and highly practical. It shows how situational awareness, environmental adaptation, resourcefulness, and mental resilience intersect to create a system that allows individuals to survive when others might fail. For historians, it's a window into the daily life of a soldier beyond the headlines and battle maps. For survivalists, it's a method that can be adapted and refined for modern challenges. Whether you're studying military history, preparing for extreme conditions, or simply fascinated by human ingenuity under duress, the German soldier's approach offers concrete strategies that are still relevant today. From snow shelters to energy management, these were life-or-death innovations that demanded both intelligence and discipline. Before we wrap up, remember to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives like this and share this video with friends who appreciate serious historical insights. The lessons from the past aren't just stories, they're guides for thinking strategically, surviving intelligently, and appreciating the resilience of those who lived through history's harshest moments.